Good afternoon, everyone. It is Wednesday, January 5th, 2022. And oh my God, how is it 2022, people? I can't quite deal with this yet. This is Women in Business, if you didn't know. And I'm assuming most of you do because it happens every week at this time. But first of all, Happy New Year, everyone. I am so glad you are here with us today. We are going to have a really good discussion about trade shows. And the reason I thought, well, honestly, the reason this topic came up is because the person who's going to be on the show with me suggested it. But once she did, I was like, this is a really good idea. We should do this because trade shows are starting to happen, and in the next few months they're going to pick up. And if you haven't been to a trade show before, then you may not know how to get the most out of it. So that's what we're going to help you do today. But first of all, I wanted to show one little thing, which is if you are not seeing, which I am not, I already saw a Facebook user, your name come up in the comments, you can go to streamyard.com/Facebook and give them permission to show your name, which is lovely. And I'm going to pop Lisa Shine here. And there's Lisa. Yay!
Yay!
Yay! And
I'm so excited to be here.
And I'm so glad to have you. And for those of you who have watched the show regularly, you know who Lisa is. But if you don't know, it's So Bubbles or Bubbles Menagerie. Which one is it, Lisa?
Both.
Okay. That's her website. And I can put that up. If I was actually doing my job, I would put this up and show you. There we go. There it is. This is Lisa's website. You can go there and see all the lovely videos and tutorials and things that she does. She's a whiz and she's so amazing. And then she also works with Imbrilliance. And we love her, they love her, and we love her. And she also is at a lot of the trade shows, certainly EEM and Applique Getaway and Quilt Market and Quilt Festival and a number of other places. So I don't know, did I miss anything, Lisa?
No, you didn't. I had to turn my phone on silent.
Uh-oh.
Silly me.
Well, silly we got
me.
One vote for the khaki jacket. Cindy says I look good in the khaki jacket. So I was worried about the khaki jackets. And yeah, we know Lisa might be showing up a little.
I'm blurry.
So it's a little blurry. Yeah. And that has to do with the internet that she has out there. So we're just going to work with it.
And we do the best we can out here in the middle of nowhere.
Yep. She lives in the boonies. So.
Yes, I've been doing machine embroidery for almost 30 years now and doing trade shows and as both a consumer and as an educator and as a vendor. So,
yep.
And now that they're starting back up again, there's different things for each one of those as far as trade shows go to think about. So,
yep, this is very true. So let's start with, if you're an attendee, what are the things? I have two that I always say. And one is make sure you dress in layers. Because the climate in the venue, especially if you're going to a show where there's dryers or there's people running machines, it's going to be, the temperature can vary so much. And they always keep the places meat locker cold because they know that there's going to be a lot of heat. So wear a sweater, right. Wear a jacket, wear things you can take off and put on depending on where you are. So that's my first one. And what's your first one, Lisa?
Well, it tags along with that as far as comfortable shoes.
Yes.
Because most of these places don't have they're concrete floors. A trade show is mostly in a concrete floor building, and it just does a number on your back. And if you're in pain, you're not smiling and you're not having a good time. So
I
you
would
gotta
agree with
be
that.
thinking of something else. So we don't care what you're wearing on your feet. Honest.
No, I wore last year at Applique Getaway, I wore black tennis shoes the whole time. And they were nice tennis shoes, but it was just because I knew I was going to be on my feet all day and I wasn't going to be
Yep.
I mean, I see people who wear stiletto heels to trade shows and I'm like, how stupid are you people?
But if you're used to wearing them, because I used to be one of those people just because I got used to wearing them. And I do find that if I wear heels one day and flats the next day and then heels again, I'm in much better shape than if I wore flats the entire time. So, but if you're not used to wearing stiletto heels, don't try it out at a trade show.
Well, that's fair. I mean, I've worn flats the whole time and your feet do die by the third day. Especially if you're wearing like ballet flats or flats without any arch support in them. Oh my God, kill you.
Mm-hmm.
So we got a few comments here.
Been there, done that.
We have a few comments I want to put up. Mary Carroll says, hello, this is timely. I think I've forgotten how to do shows. We can help with that. Cindy is voting to move all the shows to Texas.
Rumblings.
Well, I think it's the same thing that's happening with some of the other shows in that people are debating whether to go because of Omicron or, you know, maybe deciding they're not going to go. So.
Well, flexibility is another thing you have to keep in mind these days. So
yeah,
whether, that's just the way it is.
Yeah.
Do you have another? But so we're going to use best case scenarios here because power of positive thinking.
Yes. Power of positive thinking. So what's your next one, Lisa? I'll let you go first this time.
Okay. I like, as from a consumer point of view, I used to bring sheets of mailing labels, which have the stickers on them with your mailing address. But that was pre-internet. So if you want to be on mailing lists, make sure your email address is on those stickers because as someone who had to hand enter in all those email addresses, it's easier. You want to be legible and your hand gets tired at the end of the show. So bring stickers with them. Sign up because that's how you sign up for giveaways sometimes. Get on newsletters. Be able to network and, get business cards printed make sure your email address is on them. That's the worst thing is getting a business card with just a name. And it's so pretty, but all I see is Jan Smith flowers.
Yeah.
No idea who Jan Smith is.
Or what she does.
Right.
And that's a problem too. And I like how we're piggybacking these. This is fun because my second one is sort of along the same line, which is make sure you bring a notebook or a notepad or something where you can make notes, because I have done this where I get cards from someone and there's a specific thing that I wanted, but I don't write it down. And so when I get home, I'm looking at their card going, why do I have this? I don't know. What did I want from this? Or what did we talk about? Or what did I tell them that I would do? So if you make notes, it works a lot better. And if you have your own little notebook or something, and actually this is one thing that I think the ISS show, the Impressions Expo now, did really well last year is when you went to a class, they scanned your badge, they gave you a pen and a little notebook with Impressions Expo on the front. And I still have mine. And I used it for notes for the rest of the thing. So it was I think they did that really well. So
Very nice. I remember So Expo years and years ago used to do that, and I think it's fabulous. Whoops.
I do too.
Cable.
I mean, I think it's, and honestly, from the showrunner standpoint, having a notepad or something that's stamped with your show on it isn't probably going to be that costly, which I'm being a sort of showrunner now myself. I'm filing that away in the back of my head right now because that might be something we'll have to do. And Eric is totally right here. He says physically writing notes absolutely helps with comprehension and retention. There's a lot of big words in that sentence, but yes.
Absolutely. Now, I will say, utilizing your phone, the camera on your phone is also a good thing because you're less likely to lose your phone as opposed to losing a business card or things like that. So just remember to go look at them afterwards.
And also, speaking of phones, a lot of shows now have apps too. And you can download, like Applique Getaway had, I'm betting this is Lindsay. Lindsay just said, remember we had a notes feature in the AG app. It was like a digital notepad. So, and I was just going to talk about that. So thank you for getting that in there before. But an app can be really useful. It can help you plan your route around the show. It can give you insights into the exhibitors. Cindy has a really good point here too. Whoops, I have to be able to hit the right button. Get the show catalog of the vendors and make a list of who you want to go see. And that was actually going to be my next point. So Cindy just took my point, but she's totally right.
That's okay.
Yeah, I mean, I love it that, yeah, it's good. And I think she's completely right. You need to do some advanced planning. I mean, even with the I can't really say post-COVID, but even with the shows the last few years being a little smaller, you still want to maximize your time and make sure you see who.
Right. You want to have your questions ready. You want to know, do I need to shop at this place and what do they do? And have questions ahead of time, because if you don't, some companies have weird names and you may not know. Well, everybody should know who Embrilliance is, but maybe you don't. So look them up. See
who
what
doesn't
it is.
know who Embrilliance is?
You're not into embroidery. You don't. It doesn't matter. But
well, and just from the standpoint of having been a vendor at a lot of these shows when I was with Enmart, it's so great when people come prepared, because then you're not wasting their time and they're not wasting yours. There's nothing worse than spending 45 minutes talking to someone to help them figure out that they don't need what you have.
Right. Been there, done that.
Yeah, and it's like, well,
now that's one of the reasons why I stick to my local. Now I don't want to say local shows, but because I do machine embroidery, and I used to do a large quilt festival, 60,000 people. Woohoo! You had to pre-qualify pretty much everyone that came in to make sure you have an embroidery machine, because you don't need what I've got if you don't.
Right.
So it's very helpful. And I just had a thought and it lost.
Well, I'm gonna throw.
This is follow a nice the comment about. So AG. We're doing research on them.
Yes, go ahead.
Follow since you're doing research on the companies, make sure you follow them on social media, because sometimes they do a giveaway or something at the show. If you mention it, that you saw something on Facebook or on Instagram, you could get a goodie or something like that. And you won't know about it unless you do follow them ahead of time.
Same idea with when I was at Enmart, we used to send out a pre-show email that we had. If you brought the email or the code to the show, you could get, 5% extra off whatever you bought at the show. But if you didn't open the email and read it, you didn't know that. So
Right.
definitely pay attention. And now I'm going to hit this comment. I'm going to hit a couple comments here, but Lindsay says it was so nice with, or no, I'm sorry. Cindy says it was so nice with AG. Y'all did commercials and introduced the vendors. It was super nice to know who and what. And I have to say, I loved those vendor voice videos. I definitely plan on bringing them back this year. They were so fun. So and Eric says, first pass, you hit the ones you hit the ones that are your can't miss booths in your appointments. Second pass, you can see what's out there and interesting. And that's definitely, I think, good advice, that if you're, go see the ones that really are going to be vital to you. So if you get sick or you get tired or, something happens, you don't miss the things you really want to take care of. So
absolutely.
I think that's totally true. So I think the next thing that I want to talk about as far as if you're attending is keep in mind that there's a ton of shows out there. I mean, we've got the Graphics Pro Expos, we've got Impressions Expo, we've got the DAX show, we've got Applique Getaway, we've got PPAI, we've got ASI shows, we've got EEM, we've got Quilt Market, we've got all these shows and all these. I mean, I could list more if I wanted to. But keep in mind, you don't have to go to everything. I think people have this fear of missing out, and the FOMO makes them feel like they see pictures of their friends or people in the industry that they know that are at this show, and they go, oh my God, I got to go to this show. But if it's a show that doesn't have vendors that interest you, or if it's a show that doesn't necessarily talk about whatever it is you do, then, I mean, if you have like incredible amounts of disposable income and unlimited time, go to every show you want. But good God. Because
exactly.
I mean,
and also plan your time wisely when you're going to a show, because you'll have classes, but you'll also have things going on in the vendor area and social things that go on, and you need to plan accordingly.
Yeah.
It's, if you are devoting something to be just education, then make sure the focus of that event is a lot of education. So
I would agree. And one of the questions that I hear a lot from people who are new to the industry is, which show should I go to? What show should I go to? And it's like, well, what do you want to do? I mean, we all have our shows that we have, affection for. Like, I started out speaking at the DAX shows, and I've always liked those shows, and I have, great affection for them. So I will usually tell people, if you want a nice, smaller show with really friendly people, go to DAX. But that isn't what everybody needs, and it's not what everybody wants all the time. And it depends on, if you're a screen printer, maybe Graphics Pro Expo is going to be more where you want to go, or Impressions Expo. I don't know. It depends. You kind of have to do your own research.
You make a list of your priorities too, because if it's very important, if critical that it's within driving distance of your house, start researching everywhere within whatever your driving distance is. If you only will drive an hour, check with the local dealers, check with the groups. If you're into quilting, check with the quilting groups. If you're into machine embroidery, see what is there within your driving distance. Go to Google and search on machine embroidery shows, and you're going to get the whole worldwide thing. I only want them near Elbert, Colorado, within 60 miles. You'll find nothing, but that's okay.
Well, and we were talking about, and we were talking about this before we started today, that you also have to factor in the cost of everything. A lot of people just look at the cost of getting into the show, which oftentimes is free if you register early enough, but you have to factor in travel time. You have to factor in food. If you're going to stay over, you have to factor in where you're staying. The cost of these things And a lot of shows too,
Right.
they also may charge for classes separately. So you have to look at that as well. If you take 3 classes at a show and it's $100 a class, that's an extra $300 that you're spending, which may well be worth it. But
Right.
you need to take that into account, because you have to remember these shows are an investment. They're not just, oh, let's go have fun, even though we want to all go have fun and meet our friends and have drinks and, all that. But they're an investment too.
Right.
So, though the drinks and the fun part is fun, but
sometimes it makes the whole show worthwhile.
yeah, sometimes it's fun. Definitely. And I don't know why StreamYard is being so annoying and not showing people's names, but they don't seem to want to today. So StreamYard.com/Facebook, if they're not showing your name, and maybe they will, or maybe they won't, who knows. But anyway, since we are talking about some of the shows that you can go to, I just wanted to show you, there are the DAX shows. That's their URL. Impressions Expo, and they have a series of shows. I think there's 4 or 5 this year. And then Graphics Pro Expo, and there's 4 or 5 of those this year. And then, of course, my favorite show, Applique Getaway. I had to put that in there.
Absolutely. Now, if someone's going to ask, where do I find out about the shows? Follow your instructors that you want to go to. They should be advertising where they're going to be. That's my law. If you're a teacher, you better be telling people where to find you.
That's a really good point, because
or a vendor.
If you have a vendor or an instructor that you really like and you'd like to meet, or you'd like to take a class in person, then follow all their social media and like their stuff, and and don't be, at least from the standpoint of Applique Getaway, I'd say, don't be reluctant to let us know if there's an instructor you'd like to see or a vendor you'd like to see, because I will be on that like white on rice, man.
She's getting ready.
Well, I mean, it's just from the standpoint of, the shows don't prosper if they don't have people that people want to see. If they don't have vendors that people want to visit, and if they don't have instructors that people want to learn from. That's just economics. So if you have somebody that you think you'd really like to see them be an instructor, or you'd like to see them be a vendor or whatever, let the shows know that, hey, we really would like you to reach out to this person. And,
Exactly.
sometimes the person that you're recommending will not care to do it for whatever the reason, but we're going to talk about the vendor side of it in a little bit. But, it's always worth recommending. And looks like Jeff and Adam are here. Hi, Jeff and Adam. Good to see ya. So I think the last thing that I wanted to kind of cover on the attendee side of things is that we sort of said it, but not really. So I wanted to make it really clear. You have to know why you're going. You have to know what it is you want to get.
Set your expectations.
Yes. You have to be aware of what it is you want to get out of it, and like I said, it's totally not wrong to just say, I'm going because I want to hang out with all the people that are going to be there, that I want to see my friends or whatever. There's nothing wrong with that if you can afford the time and money to do that, but go with have a really clear set of priorities in mind, I guess, is what I want to say. Mm-hmm. Does that make sense?
And do whatever it takes to make the most positive outcome happen. Sign up for a class, even if it's only just one. If you want to learn something, maybe not overwhelm yourself. Taking classes at a trade show is very different than watching videos on YouTube. Love that class. Love it.
After Hours with Lisa. Of course I had to use this one today. How could I not use that one today?
Love it.
But
Love
actually, this brings up a really good point. Last year at Applique Getaway, we did a live after hours with Lisa that we broadcast from the show. So though there are a lot of fun after floor hour activities. A lot of times there's mixers, there's meetups, they're great places to network, they're great places to see people that you admire and maybe want to talk to. So some people will just go for the floor stuff and then they leave. Don't miss the stuff that's around the floor.
Right. And that makes another point. I mean, make sure you check out to see what is available after hours or after the show is over or before the show starts, because some conventions are not located at the hotel that you're staying at.
Mm-hmm.
So you may have to make extra arrangements to say, okay, I need to rent a car, or I need to have an Uber take me, or get a carpool going or something, so that you don't miss out on extra things that are going on.
True. And you also may need to, some things will have a separate fee depending on, if you want to go to this dinner with these 3 really prominent educators, you may have to pay an extra amount of money. So you need to be aware of that too. And most shows will list that all like on an a la carte menu somewhere, but you should. And this is a really good point that Carolyn made. If you are planning on attending a show as a tax credit for education, you have to take a class. So that's a really good point. So there's a lot of things and also if you want to write off the show, you probably are going to want to talk to your accountant and see what you need to have to be able to do that legally and safely. So, and I mean, I think the big thing to remember is going to a show is a huge investment, and it's a good investment. But if you're going to do it, make sure that you make the most of the investment you're making. So,
right. I think there's 3 things as a consumer you're getting when you go to a show. 1 is checking out the vendors and seeing what's out there. 2 is education. And 3 is networking, whether it's social with your people that you've met virtually online, or networking with different companies to try and get business relationships going, starting business accounts, having that conversation, things like that. Those my 3 things that
I would totally agree with you. I think that, and you need to be the best result that you can get from a trade show is when you're firing on all cylinders in all those 3 areas. So you're networking, you're learning, and you're getting the most out of it, because there's really no point if you're just going to kind of half-ass it. There's not a lot of point, excuse my language, but there's not a lot of point to doing that. So Jeff is making me laugh here.
And if you're wearing comfortable shoes, you'll be able to do that better.
There we go. Jeff says, we are not accountants. See your CPA if this applies. Yes. And networking with vendors that you might outsource to is also another option, or finding vendors to buy, depending on the show, finding vendors to get supplies from too. I mean, I know I was at ISS. I want to call it ISS still. I was at Impressions Expo Fort Worth last year, and they had a lot of vendors who were selling bags or shirts or whatever it was. So especially with the supply chain woes right now, getting to talk to vendors in person could be really helpful. So, the supply chain woes, you might have heard of those.
Just a little bit.
And see, now my camera went crazy. So we're going to fix the camera here for a moment. So my picture is going to go. If I move too fast, for some reason, the camera just goes nuts, and then I just have to switch it back, and then we're good. I don't know why that is.
Okay.
But now we're good. I moved too fast, apparently, and my focus just can't handle it. So anyway, so the other half of this equation is, so you want to be a vendor at a show. You're looking at on this screen right now, collectively, can I say decades of experience in being a vendor and be right?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I know I have
Lots
almost
of
2 decades. Yeah. Yeah. So
Yeah.
the reason we want to talk about being a vendor is because maybe not at the shows that we're talking about going to as an attendee. Most of you probably aren't going to be vendors at Impressions Expo. You're not going to be vendors at necessarily Graphics Pro. You may be vendors at Applique Getaway. Some of you will be hearing from me. But if you're going to be a vendor, there are some things you need to take into account. My first tip for anybody who's going to be a vendor is do your research on the show. If your showrunners are worth their salt, they will be able to give you demographics. They will be able to tell you who typically attends their show, what they typically buy, all that kind of stuff. I mean, they may not be able to parse it off by, in the age group of 35 to 44, there are this many people, but they can give you a good overview. So you want to do that because you don't want to waste time and money setting up for a show that is not going to have people who want what you have to offer. So do your research.
Right. Now, this part can also be applied to people that are doing craft shows. So
yes,
it's the same type of thing.
Where I was trying to go.
And it was funny because I went to my first one this season. I haven't been, because of COVID, it's been a few years since I've gone. And it was interesting because I saw some vendors that were there. This was a craft show in Calhan, Colorado, which is like Elbert, Colorado, so really small. And it was interesting to see some of the vendors that were there. I'm like, did you think this through? And I doubt they're watching because whatever, I just feel bad. But this one woman, she sold hand-painted, custom-ordered tumblers, and she had 4 on her booth display, and they started at $80 a piece.
Whoa, at a local craft show?
It was mostly Christmas. Yeah, it was like promotional items that she was selling at this thing. And I'm like, it just was not a match whatsoever because first of all, she only had 4 items there and I don't know. Now, granted, the booth was only $50. So I can, maybe that was worth her investment.
Yeah, but it's still time and
to sit there for 8 hours.
Yeah.
You got to know your market.
Yeah. I would totally agree with that. And apparently, Adam has declared that he's going to meet you at a show, Lisa. So
I can't wait. One day it will happen.
Well, I'm pushing for the nerds to come to AG, or to vend at AG if we can, or be educators at AG, something. So if Jeff comes, he can bring Adam and then we can all hang out. It'll be fun.
There you go.
I like it. So
you gotta get that younger people in there.
Yeah, the younger demographic. I was actually thinking about that earlier today. We need to get the younger demographic going. So there we go. Adam can lead the charge. But the next thing I wanted to talk about, if you're a vendor, is that you need to be, just like if you're an attendee, you need to do the math on what it's going to cost you to get a lead. Because when I was at Enmart, we did the math on this and we stopped doing some shows because we were spending so much money to get a lead. And a lead is basically someone that you think you can sell something to. That's the easiest description. but it was costing us so much to get that lead that by the time we sold them something, we weren't making any money on it. So, right. And do your math in all the things like, I mean, okay, if you're doing a local craft show where it's the booth is $50 and you can load your car and take the stuff there, then you still you need to do the math in the sense of, is your target market going to be there? Because like Lisa was saying about the lady with the hand painted tumblers, if you don't sell anything, then you've wasted 8 hours of your day when you could have been making more product or doing whatever. So, do your research and look at all your costs. What are you going to sell? Is there material handling? What is your booth space cost? What is it going to cost to transport? How much is it going to cost to get your stuff there? How are they allowing you to bring stuff in? Can you carry your own stuff in, or do they have to move everything for you? Because if they have to move everything for you, it's going to cost you a ton. And I'm trying not to swear now because I know there are children watching.
Now we know. I remember this is going back almost 20 years. I did a run of shows because I was traveling. So we drove. I went to Vegas to do VDTA, and then we went to California to do a Rusty Barn show. And then we had another location back in Vegas. So we were trying to find something to go in between these two Vegas shows. So I did this show in California, and my expenses were low because I didn't want to drive back and forth to Colorado, but and I was going to be out, but the show was not ideal. I was selling machine embroidery software, and this is back in the early 2000, probably 2000 it was. My booth was between Hugo, the amazing tape wrapping guy. The guy on this side was selling patches that you could hand sew onto garments, and across from was a triple booth of belly dancing costumes.
Okay.
My market. It was horrible. It was horrible because I had to pre-qualify. Yes, you need a computer. Yes, you need an embroidery machine. You know, it was tough. It was tough. But I'll never forget that show. That was the one I'm like, I need to do my research a little better.
Yeah. And it's, it's, I think sometimes you hear that everybody's going to X show, everybody's going to be at blah, blah show, and you think you have to be there. And then when you actually do the math on it, you're like, no, I don't need to be there. Not me. And I want to put up some more comments here. Poor Eric, yet another person to meet Lisa before me, despite all the work we've done together.
I know.
Eric and Lisa are like, star-crossed lovers or something. They're never destined to meet. Ships that pass in the night. And then apparently you have stalkers or something, because Matt and I drove 17 miles from her house and she wasn't home. So close and yet so far away. And Cindy says everything is more fun in Texas. Lindsay's kids are at AG. Lindsay's kids were not the only kids. Carly's kids were there, and Christina had her kids there, and that's a very kid-friendly show. Applicant Getaway. Mm-hmm. And then to get back to our subject here, I don't know who this is. Sorry, Facebook user, if you'll tell me. I am thinking maybe Carolyn. I don't know. When I do a local booth, I only sell items I have in totes already made. No extra investment unless it was popular before or people are specifically asking me if I will have it there. Yep, it is Carolyn. She just said that in the next little comment bubble says Carolyn. But yeah, I mean, I think we have to make a little bit of a distinction between your local craft shows and doing something like a DAC show or a Impressions Expo or a Graphics Pro or something like that. If you do one of the more commercial shows, your costs are going to be higher. Or Quilt Market. Quilt Market, holy God.
Right.
Quilt Market treats their vendor contracts like they're top secret documents and nobody should know anything. I'm like, what? Who wants this besides people who are going to be at your show? It was crazy. I mean, I had never seen. Yeah, I had never seen anything like it. That is, which this does bring up another thing. There are also trade shows out there that will require you to be credentialed to exhibit.
Mm-hmm.
Quilt Market is one of them. You have to prove that you are of their market to be able to be a vendor at their show. And that, I mean, literally we had to get references. We had to send them invoices. We had to prove that we were a legitimate supplier to their market before they would even let us in the door. So,
yeah.
And, you know,
but I get it after being next to the belly dancing costume.
Well, yeah, I mean,
get that.
You know, they definitely are dedicated to making sure that the people who vend at their show actually serve their market. Though they had some weird I'm sorry, but they had some weird ass stuff there. I mean, there was like hand cream and stuff. And I was like, why is this a booth at this show? I don't get it.
Foot massagers.
Yeah, or massage chairs or whatever. And I was like, I don't understand why this is at the show. That doesn't make any sense to me. But so, I mean, from the showrunner's standpoint, though, you have to understand that we're speaking as someone who does this now. We are trying to recruit the best slate of vendors we can get. And sometimes the vendors that you guys want to see, just especially in the last couple of years with COVID and everything, some of the vendors aren't going out. Some of them can't get supplies, so there's no reason for them to be at a show. So, you know, that's one of the little fun challenges of life right now.
The other thing from a vendor point of view, many shows are juried as well, and they don't want 15 machines and 15 digitizers and 15 software people, because they want to make it all interspersed. They want to have a variety so that the consumers that the show promoters bringing in aren't like overwhelmed with just, you know, long arms or whatever.
Right. And from the vendor standpoint, if you're selling thread and there's 5 other vendors on the show floor that are also selling thread, then your chance of getting the sale is 1 in 5 versus if you're one of 2 or the only one, then anybody who wants thread is going to buy from you. And same with machines and though machines, it's a little bit different because machine types, there is enough variation, I think, that, you know, if you want a Melco, you may not say, oh, I'll take a ZSK instead, you know?
Right.
Or you might. Who knows?
You're right. But you won't have 3 Melco dealers at a show.
Oh, you shouldn't. No. If you're planning your show well, you shouldn't. But, and I think the other thing, if you're a vendor, and I'm speaking as a showrunner here, the one thing that you can do as a vendor to exponentially increase the success of your booth and the show as a whole is to promote that you will be at the show. And this is a pet peeve that kind of both Lisa and I share a little bit. So tell them why, Lisa.
Well, okay. Whenever I sign up for a show to do it, I don't want to be sitting in my booth twiddling my thumbs because I'm going to be bored. I've made a big investment to be there. So I need to make sure, my classes are full. My people are going to be in my booth. So I promote it everywhere I can, in my newsletter, on my website, on social media. If I follow Applique Getaway and Everything Embroidery Market, and when they mention, hey, Lisa Shaw's teaching this class, of course I'm going to share that post and get it out there, because the worst thing is there's always dead time at a show. Usually, like when the classes are going on, the show floor is dead. Well, I don't want that to happen. I want the classes to be sold out, and I want people to be walking around that vendor floor. The only way to get there is if the show advertises, and I won't do a show that I know doesn't advertise their show. That's not worth my time, but I have to do my part. I need to let my people know, hey, I'm going to be here. It's the worst, that you mentioned FOMO. Fear of missing out. The worst feeling is after a show, I find out, hey, someone lived 20 minutes away. They were a walking distance and they didn't know I was going to be there. I mean, what a missed opportunity. Like I said, I do everything. If the show offers me free tickets, of course I'm going to advertise free tickets. Get somebody in there. I don't care. The more bodies on the show floor, the better it is. I mean, you can only talk to your booth mate so long. I love Debbie. Debbie's the one that works in the embroidery booth. I love her, but I don't want to talk to her all day.
She was fun. Yeah. Well, and I think from the standpoint of the vendors and the showrunners are kind of we're all in this together. We're trying to build the best show. And if you're trying to build the best show you can build, we all need to work on making sure the most attendees know. Because honestly, at the end of the day, that's what makes the show a success, is you get the bodies in the seats, in the door, in the booths. And you can't do that if you don't let them know what's happening. And, I will promote the crap out of my vendors for the show that I help run. I will promote the crap out of the show itself. But the more that the vendors are cooperating in that, and this goes for any show. I mean, I will guarantee you that Impressions Expo probably has 4 or 5 times the promotional budget that Applique Getaway has. I'm sure, they're supported by a corporation, but they still need their vendors to say, I'm going to be there and come and join us. And if you have a following, if you're a company that has customers, if you're an educator that has people who follow you, why wouldn't you let them know where you're going to be and encourage them to come there?
Right.
I mean, I don't get it.
100%. I don't get it either.
And no, we have a couple people in the comments here saying, I'm feeling a little called out. I'm like, I'm not calling anybody out. I mean, we're not calling anybody out. We're just saying
we're encouraging.
If you are being a vendor, this is something that you should be aware of. That it's something that can really help your success at the show, and it can really help the success of the show in general. That's all we're saying. I'm not pointing fingers at anyone. I'm just saying, if you're making the effort to be an educator or you're making the effort to have a booth at a show, also make the effort to promote that show and let your following know you're going to be there. That's it.
Yeah.
And if I ask you to do vendor voices and you're a vendor at Applique Getaway, do the damn video. Because they were fun last year.
They were fun. It was great you get to, it's nice to be able to chat and say something about it's advertising, even after the show.
Well, it's advertising, and it's also, if people are coming to a show, all they know about you is the little blurb that you give when you sign up to be a vendor, or, the little blurb that the show asks you to write, depending on what the show is. And they give you, 500 words or whatever it is. So they don't really get a sense of who you are. If they can see you and they can have a little more time to learn about you, they're much more likely to be prepared when they come to your booth. And they're much more likely to be excited about coming to your booth. So And Lisa is totally right. Sitting in the booth when there's nobody there or everybody you're talking to is not relevant to what you're trying to do is so demoralizing. Oh man. Dead
Sunday
shows
afternoon
are
at Quilt
worse.
Show.
Oh, dead shows are the
Rolling.
we did one year, Enmart did the NNEP show. This was some years ago in Columbus, and they had a blizzard. The show was a Friday, Saturday show, I think. They had a blizzard on Friday, and so everybody bugged out. So Saturday, the show was still going on, but I mean, you could roll a bowling ball down the aisle and not hit anyone because there was nobody there. And you know, the other thing, if you are a vendor, you sign a contract when you agree to be a vendor that says that your booth will stay up until the end of the show, whatever the show end time is. So if the show end time is 3 p.m. on Sunday, your booth stays up in full until 3 p.m. on Sunday. There is nothing worse than people pulling their booths down early. It's so annoying.
Oh, it is. First of all, it's not only annoying for, I mean, that it is the worst. It makes the show look bad because why is that person leaving? They must not be doing, there must be something wrong with the show. It makes the vendors next to you grumpy because now you got this dead space or you got people walking up in the middle of a show.
Right.
And people are like, oh, there must be something wrong. I'm not going to come next year because such and so vendors left early. You know,
well, and it's
plan your calendar.
Well, yeah, and it's just you agree to do it. You know, you agree to be there for the specified time period. And every show has this in their vendor contract. Every show I have ever even looked at, it's in their vendor contract. You must stay until the show is done. And our official takedown hours are these hours. And there's always some jerk who pulls down early, and it just you know, and
it's one way to get to make sure you are not invited next year.
Trust me, I know almost every showrunner I've ever talked to has a list of people that will not be invited, and if they want to come back will be told no because you know, you didn't follow the rules, and you know, and it does, from an attendee standpoint, seeing people packing up early is just, I mean, it's basically saying to the attendees, we don't really care about you and we're not interested in you, and we don't think you're worth our time.
Or the show's over, why don't you go home?
Yeah, well, speaking as one last tip for attendees, when the show is over, don't go hang out in somebody's booth once the show is done because we're tired and we want to pull down. And I've had, when I was at Enmart, we always got these people who would show up at like the last 10 minutes of the show and either try to get us to discount things because we didn't want to take them with it. We didn't want to pack them up and take them home. I'm like, dude, we got a 16-foot box truck. It really doesn't matter to us. Or the people who were debating something and just wanted to hang out in the booth for some reason. I don't know why. And so we're pulling down, and they've gone over the loudspeaker and said, the show's over. Thanks for being here. And these people are just sitting in the booth. Well, we're pulling things down. And I'm like, what the hell are you doing? Oh.
That's not when you want to be social. There's no networking going on. However, if you are looking for a large ticket item like a laser or a machine, it's good to have that conversation with the vendor before the show starts or at the beginning of the show saying, hey, I'm interested. Let's make a deal. I'll take this home for you. Then you don't have to ship it back. I know a lot of the machine companies, they want to move their machines.
Oh, yeah. And we had arrangements with people that, you know, we'll sell you our demo, but we're going to use it through the show and you
Right.
can come and get it at the end. That's a different thing. I do want to put up a few little comments here. Eric says, I'm with you on that. I always made my crew wait for the last moment. Admittedly, there is always an end user that hangs around way after the breakdown, but honestly, being there for the people is the point. So that's never a problem until we are all getting kicked out. And I don't mind. I have to sort of agree with that and sort of not. If you're trying to break down the show and the people are just hanging around to hang around, that, you know, if there's a reason they're there, if somebody does want to talk to me or has a question or something, that's one thing. If they're just kind of hanging out, ooh. And Jeff
when
says,
the grandchildren pictures start coming out, that's when it's a little.
Yeah, that's not. And Jeff says, I thought that was a thing, getting deals on the last day. It can be, but it's the people who show up 5 minutes before the show and then start going, well, you don't want to pack that back up, do you? And it's like, you know what? I really don't care. I can do that just fine. And honestly, because you asked me that, yes, I do. And then Eric said, some experts teach the last minute buy as a strategy. It's not a given, folks. Definitely. So, I mean, it's kind of a thing that it depends on the vendor. Some vendors will do the last minute thing. Some vendors probably have it planned into their plans that if they don't sell this thing, you know, some people bring demos fully hoping that they're just going to get rid of them. So, but don't ever go up to a vendor and go, oh, you don't want to pack that up, right? So I'll take it off your hands for, you know, a quarter of what you want for it. No, you won't.
Or free.
Or free. Yeah. Waiting to get an autograph. Now, actually, people I've never had anybody ask me for an autograph, but I have had people come up and say, you know, I like your show, or I like what you write, or whatever. And that's always lovely. So I don't want to sound like we don't want people to come up and let us know that they like what we do, or they like our company, or whatever it is. That's wonderful. But the time to do that is not when we're trying to pack up the booth because we've been working for 3 days and we're tired. So, I did you sign Letty's jacket, Lisa?
I don't think I was at the show with her.
Oh, you weren't. I signed Letty. Oh, yeah, you weren't at ISS. I forgot. You weren't at Fort Worth. I signed Letty's jacket. Nope. Yes, Jeff, I did. So, yeah, Letty was.
If I'd been at Fort Worth, I would have met Eric.
You would have, and Jeff and Justin and me and all sorts of people. But we're going to get everybody to AG that we can. So I hope. So we can all hang out and have fun at Applica Getaway. So, and you know what? We are at almost an hour. It goes so fast.
Wow. Time flies.
I know. It goes so fast. So, okay. This is the fun part of the show where I go, if you had one last tip to give people, what would it be? Go.
Don't be afraid to step out of your shell. If you're shy,
that's a good one.
If you're not willing to talk to the person next to you when you're standing in lunch line, they're there for the same reason you're there. It's a great networking. True. So, and you may never see these people again. So even if you don't talk to anybody, you could be a completely different person and, you know, compliment them on, you know, their embroidery or the projects that they see. Just take advantage. It's a full experience going to a trade show. It's not just watching a YouTube video. It's
and remember
immerse
too,
yourself
that these people are your tribe. The people who are here doing this stuff are people who like the same things you like, who know about the same things you know about, who work in the same kind of businesses that you have, or, you know, have the same kind of hobbies that you have, whatever it is. So you already have a built-in commonality. So,
Right.
And the other thing I want to say, just because I feel like I gave the impression that I don't want people to talk to me at shows, and that's so not true. I love it when people come up to me and say hello and tell me that, tell me whatever they're thinking. I love it. So I think that's my tip. If there is an instructor that you like, if there is somebody that you've seen their work on in something like this, or in a magazine, or an educator that's helped you, let them know, because that is our lifeblood in a way, is to know that that's why we're doing this stuff. So to hear that we've made an impact somehow is amazing. Absolutely amazing. Mm-hmm. So don't be scared of me if you see me at a show. I'm really not mean. I'm making myself laugh now. Don't I mean, in my, in my khaki military jacket here with my camo on, do I look scary? I don't know. Anyway, and that won't work in the podcast version because nobody will see that. But anyway, doesn't matter. All right. So before I ramble anymore, I'm going to say thank you, Lisa, for being here with me. This was so fun. And thank you for suggesting this topic. I'm so glad you did. And next week, my guest will be Nikki Adamkowitz from the Sassy Suburb. And I'm really excited about that. That's going to be a lot of fun. And thank you, everyone, for being here. Thank you for all your great comments. And I have to laugh at this one. Jeff says, only if you were wearing a military cap. With just the jacket, you're only half scary. So I need an Eric hat, basically. And then I would be totally scary. But anyway, sorry, got distracted. And Cindy says, thank you, Lisa. Always fun. Loved it. Really fun. I'm going to hit end broadcast now. Well, I'm going to hit end broadcast now, or we're going to be here for another 15 minutes. And then we're in bonus time, and we just can't have that. Bye, everybody. Thank you very much.